Okay, welcome back to the Jaguar build. We are finally able to get back on this. Now that the Nimitz build is done, I can focus on this. The Nimitz build was a commission build for a friend, so I needed to get that done. So this went on hold for a while, and we are finally back on this. Now, just in case any of you are new to this build, or, it's been a while, let's just do a quick update on where we left off. This is a monogram kit that I bought a while ago, and it was partially built. And when I got it, I noticed that all of the framework around here that the engine mounts on and the suspensions mounts to, all of that framework was warped and bent and broken. Here's an example of it. This is actually like the best piece that was left. All of the other pieces that came off of this were just busted up and bent and just in horrible condition. So I remade all of that out of brass. I got some square brass tubing and made all of the framework out of brass, soldered it all together, and then bonded it into the car, or that part of the car. The engine was detailed and painted. I made a new brake booster. I added the linkage for the throttle. I modified the windshield washer reservoir to look a little bit better. I modified the fuel filter to look a little bit better. Added some fuel lines, added some parts to the air filter, added those tubes to look like reference photos, and the little latches here. I remade the reservoir bottles here to look more realistic, remade the heat shield out of some thin metal stock, put some material in the back to look like the insulation on reference photos, put the mounting brackets on there, added the brake lines, little brake boosters and a clutch booster, modified the heater box so you can actually see the fan in there, put the little lever and the little control cable, modified the battery so it would say Lucas, and I have the wiring onto it. And it's a little bit dusty, and I added that. It's a little bit dusty, but because it's been sitting for many months. All of the front suspension has been completely remade out of aluminum and brass. I added the brake disc and the brake calipers and put the brake lines on it. And I remade the shock absorbers. There's springs in the shock absorbers. I added the anti-sway bar, so you can see the anti-sway bar functioning. And notice that the steering arm here is disconnected because I just finally, 5 minutes ago, glued the boot onto that part of the shaft there. And I'm going to let that fully cure before I bring that over and connect it. There's what the other end looks like. And that boot is made from the bendy part of a straw, a drinking straw, bendy drinking straw here. And that's where I'm at on that part. And again, all of this is brass, all soldered brass. But that's where I'm at on this. And the wheels was the last part I was working on. This is a kit tire on a kit wheel, and this is garbage. So if you remember from last time, I remade the wheels. This is a wheel I made. The center is turned out of brass. The outer is pressed out of copper sheet, and then drilled a ton of holes and put little sewing pins in there for the spokes. And here's what some of those parts look like. Here's a center hub. Now it's brass, but I nickel plated it. And here's that one part of the wheel. All of the little bumps are rivets that I had to drill and then solder in. And there's the back ring, and that'll get attached that way. That'll make that wheel. And here's one with a tire on it. Now the tire is from D'Agostini. D'Agostini makes the same car in the same scale, and but that's really expensive. And I've noticed that a lot of the D'Agostini parts are really nice, and others are like not so much. But for the most part, they're a great looking model. But from what I've seen online, you're basically just screwing parts together, and you get a couple of pieces every month or two because it's through like a magazine subscription. So it takes you a couple of years to get it built, and it's like a couple of $1,000s by the time you get this thing done. But everything's like pre-painted, and you're just basically screwing all the parts together. But the tires are really nice. The D'Agostini tires are good. You'll notice the monogram tires. Notice it's got a flat spot because whoever I bought it from had it sitting on the shelf for a while, and well, I don't know, I think it's actually in a box, but up against the side of the box just kind of made a flat spot in it. And these are really thin and really flexible. The D'Agostini tires, these are really thick and heavy and much better quality. So I bought D'Agostini tires. They're about 25 to 30 bucks each. That's what it looks like when you get it from D'Agostini. Well, from eBay, people selling D'Agostini parts. But, and I also need to take this tire back off because it doesn't fit the wheel very well. It doesn't look too bad around here, but on the back side, there's a bit of a gap. So I need to take that tire off, fix something so it fits better. But for this video, I'm not going to focus on wheels and tires because I have a whole bunch of previous videos about how to on how I did the wheels and the spokes and everything. So if you want to see how I made those, go back into I've got a playlist. So check out the playlist. And again, if you're new to this project, you might want to just start at the beginning to see how I got up to this point. So I'm going to finish the other two wheels on my own off camera. So for this video, I want to focus back on more the engine stuff, more specifically the radiator stuff that goes up here, and get this part finished. And hopefully by then I'll have the wheels done and I can focus on the hood. So the parts that go here from the kit, we've got this. Now, I don't know what kind of glue they used. I think they used that expanding like Gorilla Glue or something. But those parts are all, well, that's not even attached. But yeah, that just looks horrendous. And this piece, so yeah, I need to figure out, and I think there's more. I'm missing something. But I got to figure out where those go, how those mount, and that's what I want to work on. So let me look at some reference photos, let me get the rest of my pieces together, and then we'll start making this stuff here. So be back with you here in just a bit. Okay, I looked at a bunch of reference photos so I can get a better idea of how the bracketry works. I want to recreate that out of either brass or something. The actual tank, I think I could use that. I could make a new one out of brass and nickel plate it, but a lot of photos I've seen, these are just kind of painted. So I'll see what that looks like after I clean it up, and if I don't like it, then I'll make a new one. Now, as far as the radiator goes, I looked at a bunch of photos of radiators, and there's a bunch of different kinds, but I did find one that has the edge profile like this, where it's all kind of crinkled. Now, it doesn't go all the way across. This is completely inaccurate. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to cut from about here down and just cut all of that out and then build actual radiator fins in here. Those flats will stay. I saw a picture of like a little drain plug in one of those. So I'll put a drain plug in one of those. But again, I'm going to have to cut all that out first. And I have some ideas about building the actual core of the radiator. This back piece I think is okay. I was thinking about making a new one, but I don't know. I might just leave that. They're usually just painted black in the photos I've seen, so that should be fine as is. Now, the kit did not come with a fan or a motor, so I'll have to make one of those that gets mounted right under here. I will also have to drill and tap some holes into the cross frame here for the bracket I make to go onto here. So that's what I'm looking at. Now, as far as the core, the horizontal fins I can just make out of thin styrene or thin brass. I mean, I could even make it out of something like that. I mean, that would be thin enough. But for the in-between part, I don't know what it's called, the crinkled part, I experimented by taking a piece of aluminum foil, and I've got a gear, and you'll notice if I put the foil here, and then I take another gear and just kind of run it along like that, that gives me that crinkle effect. And I got a piece here that's almost perfect. I mean, that would go, again, I'm not using those fins, but that would fit between the rows, and I think that would work. I want to see if I can find some thicker foil, and it started curving, so I need to refine my process for that. But as an experiment, this is hopeful, because I think that'll work to make the little, the fins, I guess is what they're called maybe. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'll get back to you once I got a bit more done. Okay, so I've been looking at a lot of reference photos. I bought some thicker brass. This is what I had, 0.32 millimeter or 0.01 inch. And I picked that up, 0.016 or 0.4 millimeter. I also got some 32 thousandths or 0.83 millimeter. That seems way too thick, and that seems way too thin, and I think that's what I want. And I'm going to start with this piece right here, and I've got it sketched out. That's twice the size as I need it, and so I'm basically just going to transfer all of that over to, I just started laying it out. I just used some Sharpie, some layout, and I'm just going to scribe it all out, scribe out that shape, drill some holes, cut it out, bend it up, and that should be done. And just to show you kind of the figures I'm looking at, I printed, and you know, my wife just bought a new printer. She's probably going to be wondering why it's going through so much ink so quickly. I think I used up my allowance of black ink for the year. But so I found some pictures of radiators, and just looking at the radiator, by the way, here's this one. And so I cut that out, and I put some styrene in here to box it out and frame it out. So now I need to build a core that goes in there. And so here's a picture of what that looks like. So there's that edge that the kit has like that. And I actually counted, if we take a look at another picture here, I actually counted the ribs along here, and they're the same as what this kit is here. But the thing is, what Monogram did is they just carried those straight across. Well, that's not the core. So yeah, so I got to remove that, and I'm going to, I got to make the core. But again, there's a few different kinds of radiators with different hoses. As far as I can tell, this is what I've got right here. There's a drain plug right there, right here. So I have to put a little drain plug in here. And I also printed this. Now, this is not what my model is. It's a different radiator. It has extra hoses that my model doesn't have. The tank is different, has an extra thing there. That mounting is a little bit different, but you can see the fan motor, the fan, which kind of looks like just a lawnmower blade, and then the shroud. So I'm basically just using this to get an idea of these brackets and the fan blade. And then there's this photo, and this is showing the mounting bracket here, which is like what my kit is. So again, if you notice this one, that tank has a tab with 2 bolts that bolt into here, whereas this one has that little standoff bracket. And there's another one on the forward corner up here. So when you look at the kit tank, there's the kit tank. So one of those brackets went right there, and the other bracket goes right there. So this is how the kit is. So I'm basically, what I'm laying out for right here will make this piece. So that edge right here will be folded down to make that flange, and that square there will be folded in to make a mounting hole for the top frame here. Of course, I'm going to have to drill my frame to bolt that in. And so yeah, that's my first step, is to make this. And I'll probably make that bracket out of some square stock. I'll just cut off at an angle. And like I said, I think I'm going to keep the tank. I'm pretty sure I can just clean that up and use that and get rid of all that weird glue that's on it. I'll have to make a cap to put on the top because I don't have the cap. Kit was missing the cap, so I got to make a cap for that. But yeah, I can keep the tank. That looks like it's just painted gray. So I'll just paint it gray or silver or something. And yeah, I'm talking way too much. So let me get this cut out and drilled and bent up, and then we'll get to the next part. Here's what it's looking like so far. And got it cut out with probably my least favorite tool. And that's this thing. And to tell you though, even though it's my least favorite tool, sometimes it's the only tool that really works well. And you just cut to the line, or close to the line, and file it to shape. So I've got a vise that I bought from Harbor Freight that has nice steel jaws that are fairly straight and parallel. So basically I clamp it in that vise to put the line right up against the jaws of the vise, and I just file it down to the jaws. And yeah, that'll mark the jaws up a little bit, but the jaws are harder than this. So as long as you stop when that's true to the jaws and you don't get too carried away and you pay attention, doesn't hurt the jaws too much. But yeah, I would not do that on a nice machine vise, not by any means. So next step on this is to sand it all smooth and clean and bend it to shape, and then nickel plate it. So I'll show you what that looks like at that point. So here's the part out of the nickel plating, and it's okay. It's not perfect. I'm still trying to learn how to nickel plate, I guess. I know I'm not using the right kind of power supply. I need to get a variable, because I think I need to do more reading, but I think you're supposed to adjust the amperage from a variable power supply for what you're trying to do. I'm just using a simple 5-volt, 100 milliamp out, like wall outlet adapter thing, which kind of works, but I'm not getting great results. The main thing is that inside corner here, and that back surface just did not want to take. And that might be because it's an inside corner. I think I remember reading somewhere that stuff like that, geometry like that, is really hard to plate. So maybe I should have plated it first and then bent it up and folded it. But that is in an area that's not even going to be seen once it's all together, because the tank kind of sits on top like that. So that's how it's going to look. So you're not even going to be able to see down in there. So I'm not too worried about it. But I did go over it gently with some steel wool just to kind of, I don't know, do something, buff it up a little bit, even out the blotchiness. I don't know how well it's coming up on camera, but it does have some blotchiness to it, which, I don't know, I think it looks fine. It looks good. The next thing is, I believe what I want to do is make the brackets right here. They're going to look like that right here. And I also need to make those brackets. So that's the next step, is to make those. And I also need to clean up the tank so I can reuse that, get all that mounted. So I'll come back and show you when I got something to show you. Okay, so this piece is done and ready to be mounted. For the brackets here, for those brackets, I basically just took some square stock and I took a Dremel tool with the cutoff wheel and I split down the side, and that gave me two like C-channel shaped parts, I guess. and just bent those to the right shape, basically following the shape of the plastic piece, and drilled a hole there and there, because again, when you look at the reference photos, that's this piece. It gets bolted to the top of the radiator and to the shroud here. So that's that piece right there. And for the mounting for the tank, that piece, that was the same square stock. And you can see I basically just cut an angle out of it to make that shape, drilled a hole in it. Now, when I looked back at reference photos, that actually on the real car, that gets welded to the side of the tank. And I drilled a hole thinking I would put a bolt in there, but that's not really realistic. So that'll get filled in with the epoxy when I epoxy that on. Same thing for this one, but now that gets mounted right there on that side. So if you compare the plastic part to my part, notice the shape pretty much exactly spot on. However, you'll notice that on the plastic kit part, they're angled this way, whereas mine's straight down. As best as I can tell, this is the way it should be on the real car. Not sure why they did it like that on the kit, but I made mine look like the reference photos. And of course, for the other side, you've got that piece, that mounted on like that, and you can see the remnants of the bracket there. So to solder those on, after I cut them out, now for those, instead of nickel plating them, I just soaked them into liquid tin. I get mixed results with this stuff. Sometimes it comes out almost like chrome, other times it looks pretty bad. This is not looking like chrome, which I'm thinking, you know, for metal parts on an engine, on a car under a hood, they're not going to all be nice and bright and shiny and chrome unless somebody like built it for a car show, which is not my intent for this model. I want this to look somewhat realistic. So the fact that it's not nice and bright and shiny and chrome, I'm okay with that. Now to solder those parts on, I basically took one of these ceramic blocks meant for soldering, and I just rested it on like this, put the parts where they needed to go. Now I covered the parts. Well, I didn't cover the parts, but I put a little bit of solder paste where the parts go and rested them together and just hit them with a little torch until the solder flowed, and that was it. So pretty quick and easy. And that's what those are looking like. So the next step is to mount this on here. I can't mount the tank yet. Now here's the tank. I cleaned up the tank, shot it with some primer, shot it with some, just a rattle can of stainless steel paint. And I don't know if I'm liking it that much. It's almost a little too sparkly. I don't know. It's still a little bit tacky. I mean, I can touch it obviously, but it's not fully cured. I think once it's fully cured, I might try to buff it with like a Scotch-Brite pad or something, just to try to dull it down a little bit. I want it to look like a painted tank. I'm not trying to go for a stainless steel unpainted tank. I want it to look like a painted tank. Because again, on the reference photos, a lot of the tanks are just painted. But as you can tell, that's not sparkly like that. So yeah, I'll try to tone that down a little bit. But just to give you an idea, this mounts in here just like that. And that will get probably JB welded onto those brackets. And but yeah, that's how that gets mounted in there, just like that. So what I'm going to do now is mount this here. I've already drilled and tapped the holes for 080 right there and there. And I've got some 080 bolts. So let me get that bolted in. I don't think I'll be able to record that because my head is going to be like right here. So yeah, let me get that bolted in and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so there's that bracket bolted in, and that tank again is not bonded in. It's just resting in there, which is how good of a fit it is. It just kind of sits in there under its own tension, and it doesn't take a lot to hold that in. It'll just come right out. So there's the bolts there and there. Now to get those started, I basically glued the bolt head to the end of that, and then used that to go down there and get it started. And of course, once it got tight, it broke off, and just used some little needle nose pliers to give it the extra little tightness it needs. But I'm happy with that so far. The radiator, where this still needs quite a lot of work. But again, that sets down in here and will get bolted in. Again, it's not quite fitting yet, but it will, I hope. But that goes in there, something like that. So, so yeah, I gotta build the core, which will take a while, and finish this. That'll be on the next video. I'm not going to have time on this video to do that. Also, on the next video, I need to make the motor and the fan that mount here for the radiator cooling. Now, these wires that are just sticking in here, those wires, I'll pull those out later. Those will go to the headlights if I decide to make the headlights actually work. I'm really on the fence with that. I know the poker models have the headlights working, which is cool, but they're kind of I don't know, they're not hard, just kind of a tedious pain in the butt to get the headlights to work. And it's one more thing that, you know, it's a play feature that if it fails, if a light bulb burns out, then you got to worry about how do you replace it or just not ever turn them on again. So it's one more thing to have to worry about and figure out and do. Plus, it's a static display model. I doubt anybody would have it on display with all the lights on. So that's kind of a, I don't know, I don't want to call it a gimmick, because on one hand it's cool, but on the other hand, it's kind of, I don't know, pointless. So I'm on the fence about the headlights. I would be interested in hearing you guys' opinions on if I should have the headlights work or not. Right now I'm leaning towards not. But like I said, that's still up in the air, I guess. So anyways, this is where I'm going to end this video. Basically, that bracket mounted and the tank. I don't want to call that done because I don't know if I'm happy with the paint. I mean, it's not bad. It's not terrible. I don't know. I got to think about it. I'll dull in it down a little bit, put some black wash on it just so it's not looking like it's brand newly been painted and bedazzled. But yeah, so I got to do more work on that. And again, I can't mount that till I get the fan in because it would be in the way. Yeah, in a feeble attempt to keep this video from becoming way too long, I'm going to end it here. I apologize that there's not a lot of work or visual progress done, but so far, I'm glad to be back on this finally. So anyways, I'm going to stop rambling, and as always, until next time, thanks for watching.